Great. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming to all of the sessions throughout the day. We're going to wrap up today with our keynote session with a really appreciated speaker, Diana Jaffe from the Flow team. So I'm just going to pass over to Diana, and we'll let the session roll from there, and then we'll begin to wrap up for today. So thank you, Diana, for being here, and over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everybody. As Mark said, we got Poland in there. All right. We were counting before the recording started about how many countries we would get in one set of attendees, and we're at least 10. I was hoping for 10 before it started. We just hit it. All right. So I am, as Mark said, a product manager on the Flow team. We have quite an extensive Flow team at this point. So my focus in particular is on triggered automation and a lot about getting new people who are new to Flow, getting started on it. So I talk a lot to folks who are new at it. But what I'm going to do today is give you kind of a high-level overview of Salesforce Flow, how we're approaching automation at Salesforce. We're going to do a brief demo of some of the power of Flow Builder in particular. And then we're going to conclude by talking a little bit about specifically where we're investing in the Flow Builder roadmap, because I know that's always of interest to some of you as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. As always, Salesforce is a publicly traded company, and I want to give you a quick reminder that you should base all your purchasing decisions on products and services that are currently available. So we'll just leave that there. So I think in the history of Salesforce started in 1999. Our vision of automation has really grown and changed quite a bit. So when we started, we were really just focused on automating the sales process, and it was automating the sales process as it existed in 1999. And it was really a lot about tracking leads, manual organization, account details, things like that. Now, as the amount of technology has grown and the cost of an individual piece of automation has decreased, the demand has gotten even bigger. So now, when we start thinking about automation, we're thinking about automation that's much more broad and focused across the entire, not only employee experience, like a specific sales rep, but really the entire customer and employee digital experience. And with that, the need for automation across business has never been greater. And I think that is especially true in the last few years, when all of our lives have really been shaken. I don't know that we would have had a session like Automation Dreamin available online like this 5 or 6 years ago, and with quite the same amount of attendance and technology. So we've faced a ton of disruption, a ton of new ways of working, and our customers have as well. I think all of us as consumers probably buy things a little differently than we did a few years ago. And our customers as providers are also reevaluating what they value and how they purchase. Their expectations on how to interact with the company have also changed. They've become not just more digital, but more broad. So maybe they're watching something on TikTok. Maybe they want a really personal hands-on experience. Maybe they don't want to ever talk to anybody on a phone. There's really just a much broader way of interacting. And we've also seen a lot of new operating modes internally as we think about how to work in a hybrid world and focus on those digital customers. So at Salesforce, we really believe that the secret to unlocking this innovation and moving ahead into the future is by finding ways for IT and the business, technology and strategy to work closely together. So how do we do that? Where do we start? Well, I think we did some polling. We got always and talked to our customers, talked to business leaders to help us drive and understand the strategy. And 86% of orgs believe that by empowering their users, empowering their employees, they're going to improve their business and improve their outcomes. So successful employees lead to successful products, lead to successful business. And employees across all of the different functions in a business are all talking about ways to innovate faster that often come back to automation. So your sales teams might be talking about how can we close deals faster? How can we kind of move faster? Service teams are going to be talking about how can we improve that customer satisfaction score? How can we automate things to make sure that customers get their answers as quickly as possible, resolve issues faster? And finance, internal operations are thinking about how can we reduce risk? How can we reduce redundancy or manual labor to ensure really seamless and fast delivery across your organization? Employees today use on average 8 different apps. I know I use so many more than that at this point, and I don't think that number is decreasing. So finding ways for technology to bring those experiences together and eliminate that manual day-to-day tasks really frees up employees to focus on innovation. I know I feel this as well when I have to spend less time worrying about my health insurance or getting reimbursed on a ticket or fixing something on my laptop, then I have more time in my day to focus on making Flow better for you. And I'm sure all of us feel this every day in our work. So businesses are really recognizing the value of merging automation and the employee experience to make those things a lot faster. So again, when we spoke with, I think it was over 2,000 business leaders all around the world, which similar to our audience today, we have quite a globe spanning audience. Almost all of them, I mean, over 90% on any category, were talking about why automation was critical to them. And it came in a couple different categories. So how do you create connected customer experiences? As a customer moves and engages from purchasing to being serviced to renewing, making sure that that's a really seamless, connected, singular experience for the customer. There were focuses on boosting productivity. So how do employees spend less time on those boring tasks and more time focused on the customer, focused on innovation, focused on delivering value? And then just on improving operational efficiency, I think we all feel that there's still a ton of redundancies, a ton of areas of manual effort that can be improved, especially as we're moving into a hybrid digital world. So automation is becoming more and more of a critical business priority, really across the world, across industries. But that doesn't make it easy. That's not necessarily a magic wand, and we have automation for everybody all at once. And that's because there's still a lot of challenges out there. So we want to help employees. We want to make things more efficient, but the reality of implementing that automation can often be costly and time consuming. So a lot of times we're talking about hiring developers, finding complicated tools, integrating with different systems. I think 60% of these users highlighted that as one of their biggest challenges. So how do you connect all these disparate systems, bring in all of this great data that's suddenly available but might not be organized? And then also there's always organizational challenges, I think. When we start talking about cross-functional teams, aligning those inside your business is often just as much of a challenge as building the automation. But with the right tools, with sort of a right fully connected platform, our thinking is that's going to help you deliver automation and therefore innovation and best-in-class experiences even faster. So that's where we come in and talk about the Customer 360 platform. So this is really a scalable platform built on trust, built on tons of customers already using it every day, giving us tons of feedback. We have 44 billion flows that we'll talk about that are already running each and every day on this platform. And it's really about connecting all of those different functions into one cross-functional application or platform, multiple applications, one platform. So I really think that's where automation shines. I like to talk about it kind of like the human body. If you think of data, of all this information as fuel, as oxygen, as all the things you need to power your body, you need all of that fuel to get to everywhere in your body. So I view automation as almost like the circulatory system, right? It's the blood, it's the heart that's pumping everything all over the place, because what good is that fuel? What good is that oxygen if it's not getting to the right fingertip when you need it, if it's not getting to your feet and able to be able to run? So really, to transform your business and your technology into something that's moving and active, you really need automation to be moving all of that data and information all around the system. So that's where we start to talk about Salesforce Flow. And I think all of that is a lot of background about why we at Salesforce are so passionate and investing so much in automation. And really, this takes, we've kind of three key themes that we're always thinking about in our approach to automation. The first is empowering people. It's often easy to think about automation as the opposite of people, and really it should be done in connection with people. So that's a lot of why you see us investing so much in Slack, because that's really about how people connect. If that's where people are collaborating and connecting, how can we bring pieces of automation that really combine with that? We also have a lot of other pieces. I'll show you screen flows in a little bit. Other ways to say, give people a guided experience, give people the knowledge and tools they need to make decisions. So automation isn't about replacing people, it's about empowering people. Our next focus is on how to build better processes and build them better. So we focus a lot on how to give you low-code tools to build things quickly, build them efficiently, and build them in kind of a safe and productive manner. So as you're working in these cross-functional teams, things like that, you have singular tools that can connect to all these different places and build trust across your organization. And lastly, as we mentioned before, data and the growing number of systems and apps and things that need to be connected is not going anywhere. This is an area where we're seeing a tremendous amount of growth. And so in order to make your customer experience seamless, we're focusing on how integrating data across different systems can be a better experience for you using Salesforce Flow. So that's really how we're using Salesforce Flow to bring that kind of magic to all of these different moments. But when we talk about how you get started with Flow, often it can be very overwhelming. I know I found it very overwhelming when I first started here to know exactly where to start. So I think you have a couple different options for getting started, and we'll also have some links at the end. So if you're a customer, if you work in a specific industry, you can reach out to your account executive. We have over 900 pre-built workflows built specifically by industry experts in conjunction with Salesforce that you can get to get started with a lot of common processes that we see across these industries. I realize, however, this is a community event and a lot of you on here aren't necessarily directly working for a specific company in a specific industry. So one of the other things that I want to call out is our app exchange. So that's a place where you can use both free Salesforce built as well as partner built available for purchase solutions in order to also get a ton of great information. I hosted a contest a couple months ago internally at Salesforce, and we have some really cool things on there. Like one of our service cloud success architects, I think he was, built out the 5 most common flows that he does when he gets started with a company at Service Cloud. And so there's just a ton of great stuff on there to get started. If you're more of a hobbyist, I know I've seen several of them on the speakers list, folks like Mark, folks like Eric Smith, Michelle. There's also a thriving community of Flow folks out there, our Flownatics, as we like to call them. So we have unofficialsf.com, which is a place where community members build and share their own open source components and solutions, as well as our Trailblazer community that has a ton of activity. So I would say it's choose, Figure out your business and your challenge, but there's a ton of resources out there, and I would encourage you to reach out and find your people. I will say for me, learning Flow, that was one of the best resources that I found in getting started, is that whole entire community of people. So Salesforce Flow at this point is kind of an umbrella term, again, because we are seeing automation across all kinds of different industries and technologies. But when we break it down, there's a couple important products specifically that we want to talk about. The first, the one that I am partial to because I'm a product manager on it, is Flow Builder. And that's really going to be your core and central place for your classic automation. We also have a lot of solutions that build on that or connect that to other systems that we'll talk about a little bit more at the end. Things like MuleSoft, things like Slack, things like orchestration. So keep this in mind. I want to dive into Flow Builder, and then we'll talk again at the end about what more you can do with Salesforce Flow once you're all on board with Flow Builder. So what is Flow Builder? Flow Builder is a low-code tool that allows you to build complex enterprise-scale workflows. So using clicks, not code, you can design a fully automated end-to-end experience. I'm going to show you how we did that. As mentioned, we focus a lot on integrating across systems. You can bring in data from Salesforce, data from external places, and create a seamless guided workflow. So again, empowering people, not just automating behind the scenes. You can combine in things like screen flows to create interactive experiences for your users, as well as then back-end automation, all using the same click to create canvas. And lastly, and one of the things that I think is really important that we've learned as a company since 1999 is how important the entire life cycle of automation is. So I talk to a lot of customers who use one of our other automation tools that we've used that we've supported in the past, Workflow Rules and Process Builder. And one of the big things that we see missing in those tools that Flow has is the ability to handle the entire life cycle. So thinking about debugging, thinking about testing, thinking about what happens to your system when the person who built it left the company 4 years ago, and now you have a new business requirement, because we're always growing, we're always changing, we're always getting new things. And you need to figure out where to add it, what to do, how not to break what's already happening, how to see what's already being used or not used in the system. So that's an area where we're continuing to invest in Flow. And then I think is important not to forget about as you get started with automation. It can be really exciting to build a lot of things, but it's also important to think about how those will last in the long term. I think there's some great sessions on some of these topics and the rest of Dreamin that go into a lot more detail, but I do want to call that out because I think that's one of the real powers of Flow Builder that sometimes gets lost when we show you the shiny things. But let's show you the shiny things. So I'm going to switch and I'm going to demo Flow Builder and the customer experience. So let me switch screens real quick. Just give me a sec. I will be very honest with you. The demo gods have not been kind to me all morning. So keep your fingers crossed for me that everything works today, because I am doing a live demo. But here we go. So let's start with Eric. I have two windows here. This one's Eric. He's a new employee. He just started, or he's just about to start his new job at a new company. Maybe he got laid off by one of our friends in the tech space a couple months ago, and now he's got a new job. So he's getting hired at Bright Bank, which is a banking thing, as a support analyst. And he gets an email into his personal email box that says, your first day is coming up soon. Please go here to confirm some information. So Bright Bank wants to make sure everything's ready for Eric on the first day so that they don't have to spend the first week making sure he gets provisioned, that his badge works, all of that. He can just hit the ground running and start working on delivering value for the business as soon as he gets started. So he clicks the link. and he gets taken to a welcome screen that's going to give him some different information that's already auto-filled with information from Salesforce. So we're so excited for you to join the team, verify your contact information, and let us know. And one thing about Eric, his legal name is Erickson, but he doesn't ever go by that. So you can go in and change it and hit next. And we've already said, okay, great. Thanks, Eric. Welcome to Brightbank. Your hiring manager has been notified and will be in touch with next steps. So let's switch over to another person, that hiring manager, Kat, to see what she's doing. So Kat's over here, and you'll notice that she got a notification, this little bell here that says, Eric has completed their contact information. Please review their applicant record. I actually already have the applicant record open because there's one other thing I want to show you. And if you'll notice here, his name is Erickson. That's listed. I already preloaded this page. When I refresh the page, you'll see that the name has already changed. So all of that is that back-end automation that was happening in the system. And it's already just here on the screen when Kat shows up. So Kat's going to go in then and take Eric through the rest of the new employee onboarding flow that we have. So here we built an interactive experience for Kat to configure and set up specific things for Eric. She can pick an onboarding buddy for him. She's going to assign him to the sales support department and then also assign a role. You'll see this role picker showed up only when I picked sales support. It would show a different one depending on which department I picked. So that's an example of our dependent pick list. Confirmed that. I go next. Here you'll see a multi-column screen that we've laid out that will let me, if I pick different options, again, get more information displayed. So you can really build a dynamic, rich experience based on your business requirements. So, okay, Eric doesn't need a mobile phone, a desktop, and a laptop. We're just going to give him a laptop, give him a MacBook Pro. Is he going to be in the office or remote? We'll say he's coming into the office. He's been a little lonely working from home. He's going to be on floor 4. As we keep going through the flow, now we're going to bring him into Slack. And Kat is able to sign him up before he even shows up for the right Slack channels that he needs to be in. I know this would be super helpful if we did this in our employee onboarding, because that's always one of the first tasks I do when we get a new product manager is go through Slack and make sure they're added to all the right groups. But Kat can do that directly from Flow. So she's going to add Eric to employee onboarding. She's going to add him to the support agents. As well as a popular one, the free food. We know he's coming into the office. So when there's free food on the floor, that gets notified, and we'll also have him in the in-person office Slack channel. She's going to hit next and say, great job. Let's go ahead and let him know that he's ready to go by sending him an email. And she's going to hit next, and that's going to go send him an email. But I want to pull your attention back here to his Slack channel. So while the Slack channel is sitting here, you'll see this is Eric's account. He's now been added to support agents, employee onboarding, free food, and the in-person office. So all of those were added because of that flow. If we go back to Eric's email, as promised, we also got some automated emails that got started, which run every morning. But we got an email from Kat that says, hello, welcome to the team. You've been added to some Slack channels. Here's a link to our new hire portal for some follow-on tasks. And here's a little bit of suggestions to get started so you don't feel overwhelmed. So Eric has had a great experience. He's ready to go on the first day. Kat can ensure that everything's lined up so she doesn't have to worry about getting him his stuff belatedly or him not being set up for success on his first day. And we're ready to go. But now I want to show you a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes. So this is Flow Builder. I'm going to scroll back to the top. So this is our employee onboarding screen flow. So behind the scenes, that flow that I showed you where Kat picked his laptop and set him up and added to the Slack channels, that's all going on all on this screen. So Flow can do a bunch of things. If we go here, you can usually see all the different things Flow can have. It can do things like data. So it's grabbing application data and pulling it in and then setting things up. If I go here and click on the new hire screen, you'll see something very similar to that screen that I showed you with the first, last name, the pickers, what position they're going to have. And this is really cool because it's a drag and drop thing. I can drag in new fields and configure them if I want to input an additional value. I can also even go in here and directly look at the applicant record and look at all of the things. So let's say we want to add pronouns to this. I can drag that in, that'll show up. We want to add a phone number, all of those things are going to show up and you'll see them all in the panel and you can configure all your different columns and your sections and also configure the dependency between the items all on this screen and really get a visual of what you're looking at. As we go on down the flow, we'll see all those different decisions. If they need a laptop, provision a laptop, desktop, etc. One of the fun things we have here is our subflows. So this is a way to make a flow inside of a flow. Again, a lot of what we're thinking about is extensibility and reusability. So in this case, this is calling the same flow 3 different times with different parameters. So that way you can have a really consistent IT provisioning process. And in this case, it's just being called to say, okay, I want a laptop. And the next one, it's going to say, I want a mobile phone. And so all of that can reuse the same process. So again, if that process changes in the future, you only have to go to one place to make sure, let's say we want to add a Slack notification to the provisioning team every time a request comes in. That could be added in one place, and all of that logic is going to route through to that one place. Moving on, we have some custom Apex actions. So one of the super powerful things about Flow, and I know there's some sessions on this, I saw on the agenda, is that you can also build and encapsulate pieces of Apex logic behind a single interface. So let's say you have developers who want to create something that can be automated by a business user, by a non-technical user. They can create that, package it up, and put it behind an Apex action, and then just give specific things to call in. So it's a little bit like those subflows, but inside a subflow is another flow, and inside of an action, you're going to have Apex code that you're not necessarily going to need to ever see or look at. So one of the things that I like to share here is this demo was actually built several years ago, before Salesforce acquired Slack. So everything that you saw me do with Slack was things we did using just the core functionality of Salesforce, which means all of that is extensible to be used with the kind of platform or product or app of your choice, just depending on what kind of APIs they have available. Slack's always had a really awesome, robust set of APIs. And now we've done a ton more things since then to integrate and connect Salesforce and Slack in really new and exciting ways. But I also want to point out that the power of Flow with its extensibility is that you can really build rich interactive experiences with separate data systems, even if they're not owned by Salesforce, even if we like ours best. So we're going to conclude with sending the email, and then we're off. So that's a little bit of what you can do using just Flow Builder, as well as behind the scenes, I think some different pieces. So you saw we grabbed data from the system and manipulated it. I also think that's up here. We created an employee record. That's one other thing we did. So we took all of that applicant data and then we auto-transformed it, as well as that additional information that Eric gave us in his portal. And we're able to convert that into an employee record all in the background. So Kat doesn't have to go in and manually say, okay, Eric, this person that we interviewed, is different than this person, Eric, who's now our employee. All of that just automatically transfers over. So we saw Flow be able to manipulate data, build out complex logic, create reusable pieces with either flows on top of flows or using reusable pieces of Apex, as well as connect to separate systems. So all of those things we saw on the slide, now you just saw in the demo. So I'm going to go back a little bit and talk, excuse me, about what that wider Salesforce Flow ecosystem has to offer. So again, I really think Flow Builder is the core. It's a great place to get started. It's included on the platform, but there's a lot of unique challenges that a lot of different businesses face. And that's where we have additional solutions as part of the overall Salesforce Flow experience that can be really helpful. Again, I think of this more as the choose your own adventure part of the presentation. So this is really where thinking about your business, your specific problems, and whether these solutions are appropriate for you. Again, I think there's some sessions on some of these in more detail, so that's a great place to go into them. So first stop on the list is flow orchestrations. So I showed you a pretty simple kind of combined set or business process, but business processes get very complex very quickly. And we especially hear from people who struggle when business processes are cross-org or they're going to take an extended period of time. So I showed you something that might happen over the course of, one day of onboarding, maybe two, but processes can take months and months. So Orchestrator is really designed to level up flow. So it uses those same elements, those same reusable building blocks of flow, but adds a layer on to make it easier and more efficient to work across users, to work across systems, and to optimize the time to value. So we've had folks who've reduced their processes from, I think it was 4 hours to 24 minutes. Just using flow orchestration. So that's what a great way to take complex business processes, those multi-user, multi-step workflows, and give them one seamless experience and automate and administrate them all from one seamless place as well. We also have deep connections with MuleSoft. This is something that we're investing in regularly. I can tell you we're doing even more to come in the future with this. And MuleSoft also has these great ways using Flow integration to connect back into Salesforce. So it's really about how you can, again, use clicks and not code to connect all kinds of different systems and build automation that's going to make that even faster. Lastly, some of us live in a world where not everything has a cool API that you can put into MuleSoft and use everywhere and automate against. Sometimes there's legacy systems that don't have that, and that's where we have robotic process automation, Flow RPA, that's going to let you automate and take action and connect those legacy systems to modern automation and to other modern systems that you have. So this is a super powerful set of functionality if this is, again, a problem that your company is dealing with. And we saw kind of the old school of Flow and Slack, what we used to do before we were partnered up in the same company. But there is a ton more that you can do with Flow and Slack today. One of the very cool things is that you can now embed those screen flows. So probably a simpler version of what Kat had, where she was picking out a laptop and things for Eric. You can embed that directly in Slack. So you can go in, it'll pop up the flow within the Slack window. You can navigate through, hit approve, hit accept, whatever. And you can basically create a way to engage with those people-empowered automations directly from Slack without ever having to open a window into Salesforce. And lastly, data is important. And Salesforce also has Tableau. And so Tableau can now connect to Flow. So you can take actions. You can configure actions in Tableau that go ahead and call one of those reusable flows as well. So again, you'll see how that reuse is happening, and we're taking those building blocks and connecting them everywhere in the customer 360 experience. So no, that was quite a lot. But I will say you are not the first. We have had a ton of really strong ROI from our customers around this already, and I think we have even more to come. So we've seen Autodesk, who used Tableau, Slack, and MuleSoft all together to see a 30% reduction in their ongoing maintenance. Wealth management, they did an awesome session on this at Dreamforce, I believe. Went down to 24 minutes to onboard their accounts and reduce their maintenance cost by 50%. And Vonage went from 4 days to 4 minutes when they were provisioning a new customer. And all of this was achieved using the power of Salesforce Flow, which I think is really cool and really exciting. And you see this across the customer experience, internal productivity, and then that operational efficiency as well. So those 3 themes we saw at the beginning, we have real world examples to back why we think those are all really important. So I just showed you a ton of stuff, but I always like to show you where we're going next and what we're thinking about on the Flow team. I have a couple highlights. Again, as always, we have that forward-looking statement at the beginning. Please make all purchasing decisions based on currently available functionality. All of this is subject to change, but I also think it's indicative of where we're going and some of the things we're thinking about and where we think we'll go next with these features. There you go. So one of the things that I always think about is as we add more and more power to Flow, how can we continue to think about the experience of building flows and bringing new users in without it being too overwhelming? So we're doing a lot of things in Flow Builder to continuously reevaluate and improve our user experience. And this gets sometimes really small and down into the nitty-gritty. So we're looking at redoing even the resource picker. So the way you pick, account first name or whatever, all the way up to thinking about how people draft and build out their automation. I was able to catch a little bit of a session on prototyping. And I think this is an area where we're also starting to look. So people are early on, they're sketching out their business requirements. How can we have Flow better able to support you in that phase of automation development, not just at implementation time or sort of at that fit and finish time as well. So from very small to very big kind of concepts, we're always talking about usability. I will also say there's always a couple gotchas in the system. That community that I talked about is awesome, and they come up with great solutions to a lot of things, and we're always looking to them to seeing where there might be hacky workarounds or extra things that we can do at the platform level to make a lot easier. So something like record type support, we have it today, but it could be a lot easier and simpler to use. You shouldn't have to look at one of our awesome Flow Champions blogs to figure it out. So that's my personal passion project at the moment. So that's some of the different areas that we're always trying to look and think about usability. We also, back to that application lifecycle development that I talked about. So when we're thinking about the entire lifespan of this automation and how it will live, in the last release, we introduced low-code testing for the first time. So you can build out not just automation, but test for your automation, also using clicks and not code, with the idea that, again, someone leaves, someone comes in 3 years later and wants to make a change, and they're wondering why something was built this way. I think I also saw a session on that where someone had that exact situation. You can start building out low-code tests as well to capture and make sure that that automation is going to keep running in the future. Next, talking specifically about screen flows, I will say the overall theme and trend that we see in screen flows is the data coming in is richer and more complex than ever, right? We saw that a lot in that automation themes. So thinking about how we can have richer components to be able to absorb and display that information. So we're working on the data table. That's one of those where some of our community friends, some who might have even been on this call, have worked a long time on open source components. We've had partners build out components. And so now we're building a native component that can display information in a data table. We're also looking at how we can repeat sections to, again, display a more complex and rich set of information repeated over and over, not just in a table form, but also in a visual form. So one piece of screen flows, I would say, is more complex data. The other piece is more reactive and responsive information. We've already done a lot there. You saw me demo having different fields show up and disappear based on other fields, but we're doing a lot more there to make it much more reactive, and also to add in things like button actions, where you can press an action, run a flow in the background, let's say, and then have the screen refresh and show new information, all without the user having to refresh the page or click an additional button. So we're really doing a lot to make that refresh capability and that reactivity native to screen flows, so it doesn't require you building out extra LWC components to make all of that happen. You'll see here we have some pilots for some of this. I think this is the reactive screens showing up and calculating the shipping. So this is some live stuff being worked out here. But we're really excited for the next generation of screen flows to come when all of this comes together. And then lastly, as mentioned, the way we talk about data and integration has grown more and more. So this is something we are investing heavily both in this year and in the next year. And you'll see that come through in both our connections with MuleSoft, so making access to things like those MuleSoft Anypoint APIs, that RPA solution that I talked about, that's wider Salesforce Flow, bringing that as easily and more directly into Flow as possible. You can connect your MuleSoft Anypoint APIs today. We're talking about making it easier. We're also talking about making it easy to configure web callouts directly from Flow. Right now, you have to kind of go to a bunch of places in platform to make one of those Apex actions like I showed in Slack that would call out to everything. And we want to figure out how to bring those simple and easy to use cases directly into Flow. Now, the thing about, again, these rich data systems and external integrations is that comes with a lot of rich, complex data. So another thing we're looking at is thinking about how we're going to transform that data once it comes in, and having more complex capabilities to do things like map and transform the data and map it back into Flow and manipulate that data once it's in as well. We also, as I mentioned previously, have the Salesforce workflow library that we're continuing to invest in to bring those pre-built industry solutions to you, kind of regardless of specific tool involved. So that was a mad dash through the world of Salesforce Flow and a little bit of a taste of where we're headed next. Here's some links if you want to learn more, take it out for a spin, get the information. We can share these links in the comments as well, and we have some time for questions. So I will start looking at either the Q&A or just in the session chat if you want to share some questions. I see Mark's linked Unofficial SF, so that's awesome. It's a great resource. Yeah, a shout out. Yes, to be clear, that demo that I showed was using Experience Cloud to embed Flow, as well as embedding Flow into the core Salesforce platform record page. So it's embeddable in a bunch of places. flows are now embeddable in LWCs, as well as being able to have LWCs embedded into Flow. It's another fun fact.
And just to feed you a couple others that are coming in, Diana, awesome session, by the way. Evalda's put into the Q&A, are we planning to improve Flow Canvas to split processes better?
Can maybe share a little bit more about what you meant by that. But one of the things we've always talked about a lot is there a way to kind of select a bunch of items in an existing canvas and break that out into its own subflow in a way that is really seamless and isn't sort of go recreate all of this and replace it from scratch. So that is something I think that we would hope to do, again, part of it as that bigger Draft to Flow initiative. I'll also say we are investing in tools like Flow Trigger Explorer, more on the record triggered automation side, to show you the bigger picture view. So if you have a bunch of small flows, if you want to see how they're all working together, so what happens when an account is created, what are all the flows that are run? So we're kind of also doing that side as well. So to give you some insight that doesn't necessarily require things all to be in one flow, and also thinking about ways to break out those flows. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. And that covers the second part of the question. So it was about visibility. We have another one as well from Alessandra. You mentioned a database for example flows. What was the website name?
A database. Oh, that's our App Exchange.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what the appexchange.salesforce.com. I'll put it in the chat right now.
Yeah. The other question from Shane, is there anything being done to increase the amount of auto run flows per day or eliminate the limit to support breaking up into multiple flows?
Yes, ideally. Nothing to announce specifically there. I think that limit would probably be talking about the scheduled flow, the scheduled or time-based trigger flows. That's usually the limit that I hear about folks running into. No current announcements on that. One thing I can share semi-exclusively, this will be public information soon. We are removing the 2000 element limit in the spring 23 release. So that's been the biggest limit that we've heard from folks. That just harkens back to the old days. I was talking to our longstanding architect, and he's telling me he remembers when they put it in, and it was because somebody's process had taken down a server and they needed to figure out a way to prevent infinite recursion. But we now have a lot more sophisticated limits in there that do that. And so we will be removing that limit in the next release. So that's been our top priority. I think we'll be looking at some of the others in a future release.
Oh, cool. So some inside info there. Thanks.
Yeah.
And another question from Fiona, will Flow include an option for how do you want to end this flow? Like direct user to new record, go back to list view, or go to a new URL? So I think it's like redirect.
So I would say that's a little further away. One of the tricky things. So if that's on a screen flow, when you're finishing, I think some of that is configurable. Sometimes when folks ask that question, they're asking in the context of a triggered flow. So they want to put in some information. So when the user's clicking around, updating a record, hits OK, they want something to happen. Our challenge is that triggered automation also runs in a lot of scenarios where there isn't a user doing that interaction. So another system is calling in and making that update. It's happening via an API. It's happening because another flow was updating it. So they're updating a record somewhere else and they don't have those permissions. So that turns out to be a very complicated feature to implement. So I would say that's probably, if that's the specific question, that's probably a further away challenge that we're unlikely to get to soon. Shorter term on my list is custom error messages for record triggered flows. That I think we would try to get to earlier because there's some mechanisms that would be helpful. So,
oh, awesome. And any other questions while we've got Diana on the call? I know we have about 10 minutes left. I don't see any more in the Q&A. We might have covered them all.
All right. Well, I'm also available on Twitter as it stands today, as well as in the Trailblazer community. If you have more questions, there's also a lot of other folks out there who can answer questions as well. Oh, a question for developers.
Awesome.
Creating custom property editors. I will try my best to answer it. I may have to direct you to somebody else, but feel free to ask Bobby.
Having a standard selector like in a standard flow to access all properties.
I don't think I'm going to be able to answer that question unless there's maybe a little more coming in. I don't know of any plans to specifically improve things like how you're setting up the custom property editors. This might be a great one for the Trailblazer community. At mention, Kelly Gupton and Alex Edelstein. Those are two folks who are very passionate about our actions and custom property editors. So, a great place.
Awesome. So we'll redirect you there, Bobby. Yeah. Great. And any other questions in the chat? We'll give it a last call. Just some chatter. I think we're good to go then. So we'll call it a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. And hello to all the folks in Europe. I feel like we don't always get to overlap or see as many of you in some of our calls that get scheduled later in the day. So it's really my pleasure to be here. Appreciate it so much.
And thank you, everybody, for an awesome day one at Automation Dreaming. And there's more to come. So join us same time, same place tomorrow. And we've got Mark on to say goodbye too, I think. There we go.
Yeah. Great. So thanks, Roy. We'll see you all tomorrow. And thanks again, Diana, for a really great keynote. It's really liked some of the things that I saw coming out from that. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Happy dreaming.
Yes. See everybody tomorrow.
Literally for some.
Yeah. Happy nap time for others.